Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler.
And I'm Mary Hope Rennie.
And you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, real stories from real estate. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Behind the Sign. Thank you for coming here, Steph.
Yes, thank you.
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
No. My daughters actually did a podcast once, and I asked to be on it, and for some reason I still haven't been invited.
Oh,
I'm not
that's
really
a bummer.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, maybe after this you'll be able to.
I think I will be.
Segue back on.
Now that you're going to be like going
I'm gonna be
viral on this
experienced.
one,
Right.
Yeah.
they're going to be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
we should have had her
Right.
on.
We definitely should have done
Now,
that.
personally, I'm really excited for this episode because I can already tell that the banter between the two of you is going to be fantastic.
Because we're both so quiet
Yeah,
and
right.
peaceful
Right.
and
Yes, and tall and blonde.
Yes.
And yes,
Right.
Yep.
tall and
Exactly.
blonde.
We're
That's
very
what they
tall.
call us.
You know me, that was my nickname in high school.
Yep, there you go. So
You took it from me.
to lead in, we're going to ask you, what did you do before real estate?
Okay.
What made you discover real estate in the first place?
Yeah.
And then at your entry point coming in, what about it was tough? What did you like about what kept you in it to make you be where you are now?
All right. Well, you're going to have to ask me those questions
Sure.
one at a time.
No
'cause,
problem.
So what did I do before real estate
Yep.
is first? So I was a military wife, 20 years. And so we moved around a lot. I was always in sales of some sort. At first, I started out as a sales assistant for a really great sales rep for a company called Cintas. And I was her B2B assistant, so business-to-business assistant. And I just knew that if I wanted to get into what I used to joke about, like a salaried sales
real
position,
job.
that I had to have that experience. So I started there, worked for her. She was amazing, so I learned a lot from her. And then every time we moved, I just tried to find another sales position that maybe could kind of round out my resume. One thing that happens when you're a military wife is that, your resume kind of stinks. You're moving every year or two. And with Scott being in flight school, we were moving often. So I wanted to at least have a little bit of a twist on it. Yes, I move all the time, but I'm bettering myself each time. So,
Right.
and sometimes that worked out and sometimes it didn't. But I did always keep some type of sales job.
Yeah.
And then when we were in Pensacola, we lived there a few different times. Somebody I met at a coffee shop was like, "Hey, you should be in real estate." And I was like, "Yeah, I should be. How do you do that?"
That sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. You make your own schedule? That's amazing.
You get to see the inside of other people's
Yeah,
homes.
right. I love that. How much does that pay? Oh, nothing at first?
That sounds fun.
I'll give that a thought. So yeah, I kind of got the idea at that point, but I went and did the classes and got my license. I even thought I was going to join, I did join a KW. I've only ever been with KW, but I joined a brokerage down there on the Gulf Coast, and it just wasn't the right timing. Like my kids were young, and I was just like, again, you realize you have to really work at this. You can't just pop into the office and attend a meeting and then all of a sudden
Business,
I remember saying like, so who gives me the leads?
That's an interesting question. We still get
me?
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of our
Yeah.
adopted audience here
Yeah.
are people who are in the same boat, right?
Yes.
Just thinking about it,
Right.
and the common misconception with
Yeah.
the way that shows and television portray real estate is you come in and then people start feeding you leads, and it's your job
Right.
to go out there and actually do the work. But that's not the case
yeah.
at all, right?
When you come from sales and you think, oh, I'm great at converting things. Well, create them first, and then you
Bingo.
can convert them.
Yeah.
So, and I'm never the person, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but I am never the person that's going to tell you that real estate is impossible, because it's not. I came into this with a husband who said, everybody's in real estate. Everybody knows a realtor, and you haven't lived here. I moved to New Hampshire after not being here since high school. You haven't lived here in 20 years. Like, if anybody can do it, you can, but I just don't see how that's possible.
That's a nice husband that
he's-
said, I know if anybody can do it, you can.
Yeah,
But
good luck. Like, and he's not a sales mentality at all. So he's always like, I mean, I don't know how you're going to get anybody. Everybody knows a realtor, and that's true. So I am never the one to say it's some people say like, oh, it's just so hard, it's impossible. It's the opposite for me. I think you just have to find your way and your thing and understand that you don't have to be just like Susie down the street. In fact, please don't be like Susie down the street.
Bingo.
But anyways.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so you were in Florida.
Yeah.
You didn't really do anything with it there.
I think I did 2 deals.
Okay. Well, that's more than the average agent
Yeah.
coming in that does.
I think I did 2. And then we got orders to move. And
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, there's my cue. This isn't right for me. And then we moved to Massachusetts. I think my husband took his first post-military job. Hated it. But we lived in Norton, Mass. And I met a neighbor down the street, Karen, who is my KW sponsor.
I've heard of her often.
Love her. She's down at the Cape. But she was like, you really should give real estate a try. And I had just taken a business-to-business sales job, and I was like, you know what, I can't. At the time, we truly needed my income. And so I was like, I can't make a change right now.
Right.
So I thought about it.
What year was this?
2015.
Okay.
So I really started thinking about it. And then I knew Scott did not love this job. So I was like, we're probably not staying here. And so we actually went back to Florida for a little bit and let the girls finish high school and all that. And then my daughter, Emily, who's a realtor as well now, she was in a girl group and they were traveling and doing stuff for Radio Disney. And we had to come to Boston for a long period of time. And I was like, ooh, this is my chance to maybe move back to New Hampshire. So I convinced my husband, and then we moved in to our new house in 2018, moved back to New Hampshire in 2018. And it just kept circling my mind. Like, I don't really want to just go back to regular sales. What do I want to do? And my husband was like, why don't you try real estate again? And I'm like,
I love it.
Was there anything in
Why not?
those 2 transactions you had when you first started that
It's a
kind of
blur.
like was a bit of a thing that you remember, like,
Nope.
ooh, there's something about it? No?
not one thing.
Oh, wow.
No,
Okay.
I would
All
love
right,
to
never
tell you
mind.
there is. It honestly is a blur. I think I got so much help, luckily.
Yeah.
So, KW, even there, was just so good at assisting that I swear it's like my first deal here was with Sue and Pete Hodgkins, and I always say I should send them like a care package quarterly or something, because that was a blur too, and they were just like, we'll help you, it's fine. Same thing with Florida. It was just so, I don't even know. Here's what I do know. I knew what I was doing as far as taking care of people, and I knew these 2 people really well. So I knew I wanted to take care of them, but all the real estate, technical, legal, schmeagle stuff, I needed help with that.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the
you just
core
do.
of helping somebody
Right,
seemed to sort of
right.
be a bug that kind of, or scratch
that
your head.
I knew.
Yeah.
So.
So when did you take your class and get your New Hampshire license?
2 months before the pandemic.
Oh, good.
Oh, congratulations.
So we joked. I finished the class, and then I'll say this proudly, I failed 3 times. And I remember Mark telling me.
A national or New Hampshire?
Actually, I think I passed one of them right away, and then I had to take the
Probably
other
the
one.
state.
Yeah,
again.
I'm
See,
assuming.
I failed the state.
Yeah.
Past
I
the
feel like
national
that-
because the state seemed way trickier than the national.
So
one.
I think you're right. I think I overstudied for, I passed the state first.
Oh.
So, because I overstudied for the state thinking I've already been licensed. And then I didn't. And I'm not a great test taker. I'm just not.
A lot of people aren't.
No, I mean, I'm just not. I get in my head and I worry about what's happening around me and, find every excuse why I'm not going to pass this one.
Yes.
And state to state, they're very different.
Yes.
Like the mass
100%.
test versus,
Yes.
completely different tests. You know, like.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
No,
But you obviously did pass.
I did.
Congratulations.
I hope so. No, I did. I do. I have a license.
That's good.
So, that was, so I took it the summer of 2020. Or was it 2019 at that point? 2019. I took it this summer, and then I failed a couple times, and then I finally got my license in February of 2020.
The day before the world
So,
shut down.
My husband had knee surgery March 17th, which literally was the day the world shut down.
Yes.
I remember them closing he had knee surgery, them closing and being like, you can have coffee, but we're out of here. Like, this is the last surgery we're going to do until who knows when.
It's funny. I had knee surgery right before
That's too funny.
On the day after Christmas Day of
Oh
2019.
my gosh.
So I was in recoup
You were,
mode.
yeah. So yeah, I took it, finally passed it. I came here with a client, which was nice. I had to pass it. They wanted to buy this lake house, and it was up in Gilmanton, and they were good friends of mine. They were part of like my youth group. I used to babysit for them. So I like really wanted to help them. And they were coming February 5th to look at a house. I passed it like February 2nd or something. So again, I'm like still waiting for my license to come in, and Sue and Pete were helping. But then what happened is the pandemic came. So I had maybe a month of in-person stuff in a normal world. And then I switched to Zoom for everything. And I remember saying to my husband, this is going to be awesome or awful. And I kept thinking, with my luck, of course, real estate was booming in New Hampshire till I showed up.
It's going to shut down now.
Of course, was the exact opposite.
Yeah. Did you come to the customer appreciation event
this year?
No.
Oh, no, then?
That year?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. That was our last event. I was curious because that was the last event
I'll have to look
Keller
back
Williams.
what year I went. I do remember.
The night before.
And something I will definitely tell people is, I think a lot of people, have this assumption is you have to be doing a lot of business and you have to be doing a lot of things to attend KW things. You just don't. No. And you're actually better off if you just come. Because that's where I finally got to meet Amy from Monarch. And I think that was the first time I met Mark. I met him in an interview. But then after that, I saw him again and we got to have a conversation.
Right.
Definitely
Build
the first time I met
relationships.
Bill. Yeah. So I definitely do think that if you are new to KW, new to real estate, and you've got that kind of open door, go. Yeah. You'll get to see what will happen too in your business and how much we all get along and how much we all kind of build off of each other.
Yeah, swim in the same pond.
Yeah. Now, you are part of a team.
I am.
What are the benefits to you being in a team?
So I think, and I tell this to everyone, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, teams are different across the board.
Correct.
Whether it's a brokerage that has different teams or KW, we all have different teams. My team is different in the aspect of, I think we're technically a group, but we really just help each other. Some teams share leads and some teams charge percentages and whatever your team does. My team is the type of team that we really just help each other. So we have weekly calls where we are either in person in a meeting or right before the office meeting, or we do Zoom if we can't seem to get together. But we just bounce everything off of each other. Hey, and we're also everywhere. So I'm in Derry, Lisa's in Salem, which isn't that far, but Tara's in Hampton. And Nikki goes, pretty much everywhere. She has some stuff up north. So it's nice for us to be like, hey, what are you seeing here? What do you guys need help with this week? When I first joined my team, I knew, so sort of to back up, when I joined real estate, I had the luxury of I didn't have to come in with, you have to make this much money.
Right.
Scott was paying the bills. I was getting this started. I knew from talking to Karen that this was going to be a process and building. I was lucky enough for that. I get that not everybody is. But that being said, while I was building that, I knew I didn't want to give away money when I had the time to build without spending a ton of money. So I didn't really want to be on a big team that you were paying 50% for leads or whatever they do. But I knew that. So I had asked a friend of mine who, she's in Hawaii, she's a military wife, but she teaches teams for KW out in Hawaii. And she was like, this is what you should try to find. And so she helped me kind of weed that down.
Great.
Yeah, and I don't remember how I found Inspire, but I found Tara, I think. And then again, we had to do everything by Zoom. I'm interviewing with them
because it was
by Zoom
during COVID.
So you made a connection to the team pretty early on.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but it was within that first year for sure. Mm-hmm. So I did my one deal because I came in with a deal.
Yeah.
And then somebody asked me, hey, do you want to help my friend? He's having a hard time with his realtor. And I was like, sure, let me figure out how to do that because he's already with a realtor. So we figured out how to do that and the best way to do that. And I helped him. So I had 2 deals. And then I decided I wanted to do this team. I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to learn from people that I knew had done well. A couple people on my team had already been in the $1,000 a day club. And I was like, this is what I want. I want a group of, and we had a guy on the team at the time, actually. I wanted a group of people, all different ages, all different backgrounds that were doing well so that I could learn from. But I didn't want to give them half of all of my commissions to do so. So I found them. I always say I got very lucky because you just don't know what you're looking for when you first come into real estate. You just don't.
Yep.
And so I got very lucky in finding them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are different in the aspect of I feel like we I'm on the ALC. I am a ALC hotline. I answer questions for people. I still had Tara come with me to a listing appointment yesterday because I was like, I just feel like you would be really beneficial to help me out with that.
Well, you know what? That's a theme that we keep on talking about in a lot of these podcasts is, and what was the word that you coined or that we heard of, the
being a co-competitor instead of a competitor.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Because what it is this business is so unique that every deal is unique. And if we come from a place that we're always learning, you're going to grow and you're both going to do better from it. So now that you're kind of in the groove of being a realtor and you've been successful.
Yeah.
First of all, what do you think makes you a successful realtor? If you had to think of, why your clients hire you.
Yeah.
What would be probably one of the words or descriptions?
I think that this sounds basic, but I am almost to a fault very quick to respond. I am, meaning I get back to people right away. I have been very surprised in this industry how many people do not do that. And I am all about work-life balance. I had to figure that out because my kids were gone. My husband works for the airline, so he's gone all the time. So I could jump in and I could do that 24/7 and nobody was the wiser. It didn't affect anybody. But it did start to affect me and my, downtime. But I did right away start hearing consistently, oh, we've had 2 realtors and I was baffled. Like sometimes we didn't hear back from her for 2 days, or sometimes he didn't call me back. He would text me and say, I don't work after 5. Like whatever your work schedule is, fine. But I would say have a plan for getting back to them right away. Because when people want to go see a house or they want information about the house, especially nowadays, they're going to get it from somebody. So if they're your client, if you can't get back to them right away, just set the expectation for that. And I think because I'm OCD about it, I just did that. Like I can't, I also put myself in the place, I've bought a few houses and I can tell you right off the bat what I didn't like and what I did like about realtors that we've used. And I right away thought that's what I want to do or don't want to do. One of those big things was communication. We all know I like to talk, but I also like to get back to people right away. For one, I don't want to forget that you texted me.
That's probably a part of it for us, right? If we don't
can't.
Respond to you now,
I might not. And then that's scary. And plus I text people and I'm like, this is my brain. What are you doing? How? I know you're sitting somewhere and you saw my text come in. How are you not answering? Because that's what I think. Someone's text come in and I answer it right away. I have finally gotten to a place where I realize what can wait and what cannot. That takes a while, I think.
You're training people on how to communicate with you.
Right.
As a service provider. So there's
well, now there's
there,
even though you've read your text, you can put it back that you have not read it.
Yep.
To remind you.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is very interesting because we have interviewed an introvert.
Yeah, so our last episode was an introvert who spoke about the
communication.
Need for communication and trust, right? Which is just fundamental importance of the job.
But I love that you both use the word communication.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And
in different ways.
You are going to do it in a whole different way than the other
I agree.
one. And you're probably going to be, you're going to attract those who look for that speedy communication or that style of, I would say even not even the timing, the style of communication.
Yep, I agree.
Well, and Greg, I mean, eloquently said, for him, it was about finding his tribe, right?
Right.
He needed to feel comfortable around other folks who could at least appreciate that he sees himself as an introvert, right? In order to sort of work with them.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as being sort of like, I know who I am. I'm extroverted. I like to talk. I like to find other people who are going to be on my same wavelength for us to have a really good working relationship?
Yeah, sort of. It's funny. I don't know if this really applies or not, but when I first started coming into the office after the pandemic and started sitting there, our team office was right up at the beginning, and there was one cubicle right outside. And there was a guy, and he's still here and does very well, but he was on the phone cold calling. Now, I'll tell you right now,
Do you love cold calling?
Never will cold call again day in my life. And we can talk about that too, because I have big thoughts on that. But it kind of goes with this is he was cold calling, and he was very, what I would consider like I would break out in a rash, like very direct and very, but you know what? Those are his people. Like the people that I would talk to, they don't want that. But then I would find some that did, and I can't be that person. You know, he would be very direct. And at times I would cringe in my office, and then I'd be like, oh my God.
That worked.
That worked. But it wouldn't work from me, right? Like that's his style. Those, like you said, you have to find your tribe. And I'm big on, similar with tying in the whole cold calling thing. My biggest issue with people coming into real estate when they talk to people is there is not one way for everyone. And I think sometimes you could get an old school coach or an old school brokerage or whatever that says, okay, you want to do $50,000 a year?
Make 500.
You have to call these many people, and that will equate to this many numbers. And you, if you're not that person, you're like, well, I'm done.
Yes.
I can't do that. You know, I recognize that there was a way to bring in your tribe without having to cold call and door knock. And
well, it's funny that you say this because you're painting like the perfect contrast.
Thank you.
Greg
You're doing a really good job.
Greg, I did not hear his.
No, well, so Greg literally said, I can't talk to people I know. I have to make cold calls to expire.
Yes, I was going to ask you.
Oh, I need to talk to him then.
Yeah, right. So talk about, two different approaches and yet two completely valid approaches.
Would you say most of your deals are from people you know? Well, actually, we could go and talk a whole other side of your business.
Yeah, so if you want me to get started on that. So my second deal, like I mentioned, was a friend of mine who said, hey, I have a friend of mine who's been having trouble with his realtor. And come to find out, he had already fired her and relinquished his contract and all that, which was handy. But
that does help.
We made an offer on a property in Barnstead, and he came with a pre-approval from a company called Veterans United. The listing agent said to me, we will accept his offer, but will he switch lenders? Because I haven't heard great things about them, and we're not really sure. And I was like, oh, let me ask him. And so I asked him, and he was like, absolutely not. I've been working for 2 years with them on building my credit. They've been doing a great job at that, and I'm just not going to ditch them now. And I'm like, okay. So I told her that, and she was like, okay, let's give it a whirl. So we did. And I called Veterans United and I said, hey, I'm doing a deal with your client. And I was so new. I didn't even know that people partnered to do these things. So I was like, okay, here's what I recommend. If you and I could stay in touch the whole time, then I think this would make the listing agent feel better. And then maybe, people in New Hampshire would have a better idea of Veterans United. And he was like, yes, let's do it. And he was amazing the whole time. We got the deal done, and Veterans United called me about a month later and said, hey, do you want to be a referral agent for us? And I was like, I don't know. Let me ask my team. No, thank
you.
Let me ask my team. And luckily,
what does that mean?
Because luckily I didn't know. And so luckily, Tara on my team had also been a referral agent for them, not knowing that at all. We didn't even talk about it. And I said yes. And I have been lucky enough. So the other side to that is I was in the Navy. My husband was Marine Corps for 20 years. I wanted to come back and do something for veterans. I truly, again, thought that's not going to be a niche here. That's not going to be a thing here. It's New Hampshire.
It's New Hampshire.
Little did I know. So then I started getting Veterans United leads. And really, I would say that truly is how business took off for me. I had somebody say to me once, oh, well, I mean, great. So that's not really what I can do. And I was like, no, but I found my thing.
Right.
You have to
Bingo.
find your thing.
Yeah.
So if that's daycares, if that's soccer teams, if whatever, be a person in the world, find your thing, and it will work for you. I truly do believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think for that, the reason that works for you is that you have a heart for those veterans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they obviously see that you do a good job with those veterans.
Yep.
So this is what's interesting. So you're using a lead source.
Yes.
And a lot of people use a lead source so that they don't have to
Right.
work in their sphere. It was exactly opposite. Your sphere brought this opportunity to you, and you took it, had that conversation, and said, let's work together.
Yeah, not knowing they even do that, right? I just wanted to get the deal done.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I just wanted my second deal to be good.
But it also sounds like, I mean, being in the Navy, communication is paramount, right?
Right, sure.
And so your level of communication, not just, frequency and response time, but probably depth, right?
Yeah.
Was probably something that they probably recognized too,
Yes.
because other veterans recognize that in other veterans, I would assume, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I have been lucky enough to really, I think in 4 years, help like 100 veterans so far.
Wow.
And it's just something that I just had no idea would happen. But yes, now I do have my sphere as well. So when I moved back here, my kids were growing up. My husband and I hadn't lived here for 20 years. And I was like, oh, here we go. So I kept saying, I remember I joined coaching and I was like, oh, I don't have a sphere. I did. I just didn't know it.
Recognize it, yeah.
I also always pride, and so does everyone on my team always reminds me of this. When I first joined real estate, I documented everything. I went on Facebook. I had a ton of Facebook friends, but again, didn't see the value in that because they were everywhere, right? Every state we lived in.
Not New Hampshire.
Not New Hampshire. But I documented everything. If I did a showing for someone else and they paid me $25 to do it, I videotaped it while I was there and I put it on Facebook. If I just wanted to do it, and then if I did an open house, I did a video from there. I did everything. And somebody came up to me one day and said, oh, Stephanie, you have to meet Tina. And I was like, oh, why? And Tina, this is Stephanie. She's the best realtor I know. I had 2 deals. I haven't seen this other lady in 10 years, but via Facebook.
Yes.
And I did say to Tina, hey, just so you know, I'm probably not the best realtor.
I love
But I will work hard to be your best realtor. I said, but the reason she thinks I am is because I am all in. Like I am. I'm all in. Yeah. I will do whatever it takes. And I have this huge background of people at KW that if I don't know it, they do. Yeah. And it worked. So I am starting to build my sphere. It's been 4 years of trying to build that. And that just comes, I think, has to come pretty organically. Yeah.
So maybe one last question.
Sure.
What would be your best advice to an agent, a person considering getting into real estate, or a brand new agent? What would, if someone could have given you advice when you were thinking about it, what would that be?
I probably wouldn't have listened because I think, like you said earlier, you're still figuring out who you are. And I think that is the most beautiful part of watching a realtor unfold is watching them develop who they are as a realtor, because we are all different.
Yes.
And so I kind of have 2 answers, because for someone thinking about getting into real estate, I think there's so many people out there that say, don't do it, good luck, right? My sister tried, or I'm never going to be that person. Do it and give it a try. If you are a mom or a dad and you have mouths to feed and you've got to figure out how to do that and still bring in income, then do it. And the people say, well, you can't do both. Just do it. If my biggest recommendation would be, if you're 22 and not sure what you're going to do with your
life, your license.
Get your real estate license. Yeah. Make nothing for the first year or so and just learn as much as you can, and then kill it for the rest of your life, but for somebody who's already in real estate, and I do get asked this a lot, I think because I took off so fast, was like, what do you suggest? And I just suggest, coming to the office as often as you can, whether you are just listening at the cubicles to what people are saying and how they're saying it, whether you get to know people in the office, come in as often as you can, attend as many classes as you can, because even if you just take a piece from all of them, you don't have to remember all of it, but do that. And then find your people. If you're lucky enough like me that you don't have to come in and make a set amount to pay bills, take it all in, take your time, find your people, because that business is going to last for a long time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
That wasn't as hard as you thought.
No, it's totally fine. I'm fine.
You guys have to go to YouTube to see the profuse amount of sweat that's
coming
out.
Where do we pick up our check at the end of this? Or?
Oh, shoot.
You pay us. You didn't know that?
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's all referral. Yeah.
As you leave the door, there's
on the way out,
you put your credit card in.
I have a small bowl of candy. Help yourself on the way out.
Take your Milky Way.
Yeah.
Well, what you don't know is that is the way to my heart. So we're good.
That's
bowl of candy.
That's right. That's going to be her lunch.
Yeah. But thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle at KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
behind the sign.